Chapter 61, Chapter 61, Pink is the warmest color. Chapter 61, Pink is the warmest color.
Hey! Hey!
That sure was something. Peach had had experiences with all sorts of people from all walks of life, but she had to say, Bowsette was different. And seeing her eyes slowly open, her hair in a tangled mess and that crown still perched on her head, she knew that this was a good kind of different. It was morning, but the sun was still low under the horizon, a result of the long winters in Shiver City. That was fine, it means more time for the two to enjoy each other. The bed was a mess of tangled covers and sheets and clothes strewn about, but there was no attempt to fix it, not from Peach. It was much easier to just sit there and stare at the women across from her.
We didn't get kidnapped during the night,
Bowsette said.
The too-sweet plan worked. Oh, don't talk business in bed. It's not sexy. Oh, but you are.
Peach leaned in and let Bowsette kiss her. That thing she did with her mouth, with the fiery sensation. It sent a tingling throughout her entire body.
You cannot use the word sexy to describe me,
Peach told her.
When we're here together, it is simply unsightly. I am no comparison to you, nor your absolutely impeccable breasts. They're not that good, are they?
Bowsette asked.
You know when they call them assets sometimes? Yours are so far beyond amazing that they are actually legitimate weapons in battle. You can distract any opponent that ever comes your way. That's how you beat us so badly when you invaded the castle, I think. I'm a goddess and I never even knew it,
Bowsette said.
Of course, you're a bit of a goddess too.
Peach couldn't help but blush.
Hardly. I'm a frilly princess with pasty skin and too much makeup. You're just as hot as me. My body's literally based off yours. But let me finish. And, you have a way with words that just... Well, you know how it gets me. That speech you gave a couple weeks back? The one where you were all, if I am not the ruler you wanted, then I apologize. If you want me to change my mind, I apologize. I don't care and I hate you. That was like pure titillation there. That's not how I said it, was it? Along those lines. Man, I was so angry. My own advisors had been hiding stuff from me. I bet they still are. Hey now, are you about to go mixing business with pleasure after all this? Is this pleasure?
Peach asked.
Every moment I spend talking with you is the definition of pleasure,
Bowsette replied. She then rolled over on her back and wrestled around with the sheets to get them untangled around her. Finally, she got all of it off but one layer of sheets resting on top of her.
Well, here I am, if you want me. Ah, this is what this was all building up to? Then I guess I'll dig in.
She did. Peach scooched her body up until the two were at equal height, with Peach laying her entire body on her lover's. Her head rested on her chest and she felt her heartbeat, steady and warm. She was never going to bring it up again because of the discomfort it would inevitably cause, but Peach felt amazing in those moments. She laid with Bowsette in her kupa form. She held her in her arms, and even at Peach's height she could lay almost her entire body just on her torso, like a life-sized pillow made of scales. This, of course, was nicer, but mostly because of the boobs. It admittedly wasn't that comfortable now that they were nearly the same size. Also, all that stinging refreshing herb last night actually seemed to work pretty well. Peach's pain was almost gone, even if her stomach was still in quite a bit of pain. Baths were probably still a no-go, but she was impressed at her quick recovery. And Bowsette had simply not brought it up, but her own arm had been stabbed by lightning yesterday too, and it had healed almost completely. She wondered if the super crown had anything to do with it.
"Hey Bowsette, you wanna get married?"
Peach asked.
"Yeah, let's." "That was a test,"
Peach said.
"Did I fail?" "Did you?" "You inscrutable woman,"
Bowsette said.
"You know my entire brain is racked in self-doubt and confusing mood swings. You cannot toy with me like this."
Peach giggled.
"Oh, Bowsette." "Wait, no, I'm serious. Please don't be coy. Did I pass your test?" "Yes, you passed."
Peach put her hands on Bowsette's cheeks and stretched them apart.
"Ow! What was that for?" "For being silly. So we're engaged now, right?" "Just after having sex for the first time? Is that okay? Are we moving too fast?"
Peach shook her head.
"We've known each other for so many years that I don't think we need much of a trial period here. Let's just get married. Then you won't be allowed to invade the Mushroom Kingdom ever again, because it'll be yours. Ours. If we are both married, then who gets to be king?"
Bowsette asked.
"Me. We settled who's on top last night, didn't we?"
Bowsette's face went flush and she pushed Peach off of her. She then rolled Peach on her back and climbed on top of her.
"Oh yeah? How about this? I dare you." Oh, you're right."
As retribution, Peach moved away from Bowsette and then pushed her back down onto her own back. She squeezed Bowsette's hips with her knees, and then held both of her wrists and then began kissing her all over her face.
As her first act, King Peach Toadstool will begin her legislation on her future wife. "Peach, are we really going to? If you want to get married, then I also want to get married. It's pretty simple." Ka. My past self would not even begin to believe what's going on right now,"
Bowsette said, trying to squirm away from woman holding her captive and failing miserably.
"I love you." "I love you too,"
said Peach.
"And I will never let you go." "I never want you to let me go,"
Bowsette said, despite currently squirming from Peach's grip.
"Just one thing. You have to give me a ring first. I don't care what kind, just get me a ring. I don't care about a fancy official ceremony or anything, just a ring." "Done. I already have the one from the first time we were legally married by Count whatever. Count Bleck. Whatever. And that one doesn't count. That ring is probably cursed by some flopside magic. Also, I hated you back then. Bad memories." "Well, I have the one my second wife left me when she walked out on me." "You're really not convincing me here." "What about my other former wife's ring? Are you ever going to tell me about those two?"
Peach asked.
"After we sign the papers at the courthouse,"
Bowsette said.
"I promise." "Now you're holding our wedding hostage, so I will be forced to satiate my curiosity? You are a villain." "I am a villain."
Bowsette flickered her eyebrows as if being a villain was provocative.
My people are probably going to revolt if we get married. When we get married. They're already revolting, aren't they? Yeah. I don't really care what they think at this point. I care what I think. So we're doing this. This has been settled. We are going to be wife and wife. Got it. Cool, 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 cool. So we are completely clear that we are changing the dynamic between us completely and permanently. No more being enemies, no more kidnapping, no more evil laughing. None of it. Especially the laughter. Darn. I won't be nearly as good of a villain that way. Get into finance,
Peach suggested, before leaning in and nibbling on Bowsette's neck again, right above one of the bite marks from last night.
You know, I don't have any other clothes,
Bowsette muttered.
Just that very low-cut dress that hides nothing. I'll let you borrow a turtleneck sweater. Wow, we really are completely changing our dynamic, then. Peach. So, our schedule for today, then,
Peach began.
Go get breakfast. Go see if the Crystal King is ready for us and go recruit him into your big army. Go to a jewelry store and shop for a ring. Get married. Come back here and begin our consummation. Plan a honeymoon that just happens to coincide with the next villain we have to visit. That's what we're going to do. Good. A bit packed, but good,
Bowsette said.
But you might be missing one thing. Are you not holding me down like this for any specific reason? Are we skipping this? Addendum,
Peach replied.
I will add one more task to the to-do list. You thank the star spirits.
End of chapter. Chapter 62, Chapter 62, Missed Connection, and Connected. Chapter 62, Missed Connection, and Connected. Peach, in a fluffy wintry dress, and Bowsette, wearing an inconspicuous forest green turtleneck sweater that was too small for her and showed off her body even more than her normal outfit already did, stood holding hands in the central area of Shiver City. It was the same spot where they had met the Dupli ghosts yesterday, and of course had that nearly deadly encounter with King Mallow as well. Probably not 100% safe for the two of them to be standing out here like this. Every time Bowsette spotted a shy guy in her peripheral vision, her mind instinctively tensed up. She swore she wasn't racist. She swore. But after all those attacks on their group by shy guys and sniffets and bandits, she was pretty certain that they had been hired by someone, probably some sort of shy guy gangster, to take care of them. Peach rested her head on Bowsette's shoulder, apparently a little cold and trying to take in Bowsette's incredibly body warmth. As half of a fire-breathing dragon lizard turtle thing, she could certainly boast that she was one of the warmest ladies around. Being high temperature in winter was akin to being the ultimate chick magnet. Excellent pro tip for the ladies and gentlemen that want to recruit females into their romantic fold. However, it didn't actually seem that the Crystal King's emissaries were coming. He was known for his deliberations, so this did not come as too much of a surprise to her.
I think we should call it a day on the Crystal Palace,
said Bowsette.
Really? You don't like being out here in the snow? Miss Warm Pants. Your teasing is ineffective on the great Lordess Bowsette, melter of ice, enemy of low temperatures,
she said.
It takes a whole lot more than this for me to feel cold. Loser. Rude.
But, it did appear that their standing out here was going to be fruitless. With Peach's hand still in her grip, she took them both away from this area and towards, you guess it, the jewelry store. With nothing left to fill the rest of their day, they looked for a couple hours at what the best type of ring would be, and in the end chose a set with 2 small pearls with a band made from metalsham steel. It was hardly the most expensive set in the store, but seeing as both of them could afford literally everything there, they only looked for what looked nice and what was going to endure the inevitable battles that the two were going to be soon plunged into. No need for a box or anything, they wore the rings out of the store.
I'm having heart palpitations, I'm so excited,
Peach said.
Is this what marriage is supposed to feel like? Well, we're not there yet.
That would be moments later, when they entered the Shiver City Municipal Courthouse. The bumpty clerk, shocked by the sudden appearance of Princess Peach of House Toadstool, was more than happy to guide them through the paperwork and steps necessary to file the marriage license. Bowsette decided that since her legal name was apparently King Bowser Koopa V, ruler of Dark Land and supreme leader of the final order of the Koopa Troop, she was going to take this opportunity to change her name and picked the very tidy Bowsette Toadstool. Very nice. The forms were complete. Peach signed her name, and then Bowsette hers. There it was.
There it is,
Bowsette said.
We're married.
The clerk butted in and added,
technically, for processing it will take up to 5 business.
Peach grabbed Bowsette and pulled her into her, smooching her on the lips with the absolute fiercest attack.
Bowsette! We're married!
Peach literally jumped up in the air. Bowsette had never seen her this giddy, his exuberant, never in her life. It got through to her as well, and she began jumping up and down as well.
Wow!
She exclaimed. They kissed again, and the clerk started to look away as if it was kind of embarrassing to look at. Ah, screw her. Bowsette hoisted Peach off her feet and carried her out of the courthouse. She sprouted wings and the two flew around in the sky. It was very cold up here, but with Bowsette's fire breath, she kept the two of them warm.
I love you,
Peach said.
I love you too,
Bowsette said. They eventually came back to the ground and headed back to the hotel to consummate their marriage for the next 12 or maybe 18 hours. But yeah, there they were. The Toadstools were wife and wife. And nothing could stop that. Well, except for the impending war brewing in Dark Land and the breaking apart of the Mushroom Kingdom. But that wasn't important right now. That could wait until tomorrow. End of chapter. Chapter 63, Chapter 63, The Conqueror. Chapter 63, The Conqueror. Still no word from Crystal King today, for some reason. Was it that hard for him to send a letter to their hotel telling them that he was still trying to figure out their request for an audience? Yes, they had prefaced that they were seeking his help in an upcoming battle that might decide the fate of the planet Earth. Yes, that was probably going to take a while to figure out a response to. But did he really not have the decency to give a formal "Hey, I'm busy right now, sorry" message? There were indeed several reasons why Bowsette had not kept in touch with this guy, and it was not because he was weak at combat. Just as their hopes of a productive day were dashed and they were about to spend the rest of the afternoon laying in bed again, a Paracupa jetted down from the sky and skidded to a stop right next to them. He was wearing goggles and had in his hands a letter inside a black envelope. Black envelope.
I gotta tell ya, this sure took a long time to get to you,
the Paracupa said.
Letter for Lourdes Bowsette. And you are Parakari,
he said.
You might remember me. I helped defeat you way back when you had taken the Star Rod. No recollection whatsoever,
Bowsette said.
Ah, shucks. Well, since you don't have an address and your whereabouts were kept under wraps and this letter had been couriered over to the Toadtown post office through a rally of 4 scouts over a 10-day journey, I'm sorry to deliver this to you so late. But as soon as I found out you were in Shiver City, I came as fast as I could. This thing's apparently straight from an undisclosed location in Dark Land and marked ultra high priority. Dark Land. Give that to me.
Bowsette snatched the letter away from him and her hands shook. Whatever this was, it had to be, well, ultra important. And the timing. Oh Brighton, she hoped her children were okay.
Thank you,
Peach said.
And congrats on the wedding, you too.
He said.
Times might be tough right now, but I'm rooting for you.
Just as he was beginning to fly away, Peach raised her hand, and shouted,
Wait! How? How do you know all this stuff? How did you even find us? Princess,
Parakari said, wings still flapping as he hovered a few feet in the air.
The Postal Service knows everything.
And then he flew away. Peach stared in stunned silence for a few moments while Bowsette stared at the letter in her hands.
Let's go get something to eat,
Bowsette said.
And then we can read this together.
She was really nervous. Inside some unassuming coffee shop, the two wives sat next to each other, both eating Mama Luigi bagels and drinking tough coffees.
You know,
Peach said, continuing off some small talk conversation Bowsette was half paying attention to.
I think I'm going to change my title to King after all. I'm 100% serious. I don't want to be married and still go by Princess. I'm literally the Queen, but I always thought I was too young for that title to have any resonance. So now, I think it does. But you're the Queen, not me. I prefer Lordess,
Bowsette replied.
Ah, fine. Lordess it is. I make up the rules anyway. I want to read this letter. But I'm really scared,
Bowsette said.
That your kids might be in trouble. That our kids might be in trouble. I hadn't thought of it that way. I'm sorry. Maybe we should have discussed that before we got married,
said Bowsette.
Are you ready to be a stepmom like this?
Peach took a bite of her bagel and chewed it up.
I sure hope so. As parents, then. I guess we ought to open up the letter now. Yeah.
Bowsette removed the seal, and read it.
To Bowsette, Savior of the waking world, Slayer of the dreaming dead. My name is Iggy Koopa, the Conqueror. I write this letter in the hopes that somehow, someone will get it to you. You told us to wait and to hide, to bide our time and strike in the outskirts. Thank you so much for this advice, as it has helped us hone our strategy to take back Dark Land from Morton Koopa and decimate his rule. Morton Jr., Bowser Jr., Lemmy, and I fight on, trying to liberate villages captured by the loyalist Koopa troop and turning every location into a makeshift fort. Even when the Koopa troop recaptures these places, our allies merely relocate to a new place. We never let their army stop to rest. Morton Jr. in particular has been very proactive in all of this. He was touched by your words about how important he was and has taken every care to destroy these foes that have turned our country into a war zone, while avoiding any trace of his presence. While I have acted as the leader, the conqueror to rise up against the evil King Koopa, Morton acts in the shadows, growing reputation as the masked hero Big Mouth Koopa, swooping into prisons and freeing those inside with great power. In all of this, we have spread the word of your heroism and your impending return to all we encounter. We tell them great tales of your daring rescue attempt at Chaos Castle, and the army you are building. You have become a folk hero, a legend that parents tell their children. I apologize if this puts too much pressure on you, but it has mobilized the populace against Morton, and that will never be something to regret. If my father Bowser were still alive, he would commemorate your actions and bestow upon you a great many honored titles. Unfortunately, we have had some setbacks as well, and that is the reason I am writing this letter. Our main informants in Castle Koopa, my sister Wendy and my grandmother Cammy, have been discovered and captured by Morton himself. Because of our successes at freeing prisoners, he has begun cursing high-priority targets and turning them into stone. There are statues littered all across Dark Land, of family and loved ones and allies. And it is tragic. We do not wish this upon anyone, but we also have no cure for it at this time. The only way to break the curse is to destroy the one who created it, as far as our dissident Magi Koopas have been able to tell us. General Guy has also been captured. The Shy Guy rebellion is over and we are the only remaining resistance force still fighting. We are still going strong, but our resources will not last forever. I plead with you, if you can, to please return soon so that we may join forces and bring peace to this land once and for all. I would also like to report on my two brothers who chose to join the Royal Army rather than dissent against their kin, Roy and Larry Koopa. They have been fast promoted to high-ranking positions in the military, and we have faced them in combat multiple times already. It pains me to say that this war has torn brother against brother, and so far nothing I have done has convinced them away. Morton Koopa is planning something big in his castle right now. We at first thought it was the ritual to bring himself back to life, but we have discerned that it was actually something even greater. However, we do not know what it is, and our scouts have all been captured before reporting back to us on this. So we must warn that there is something brewing, some sort of danger, but we do not know what. That is all that I have to report. Bowsette, thank you for helping us on our quest, and I hope to meet you again. Whatever I do, I will do it thinking about you, and about my father. I am entrusting this message with my most trusted Wiggler Scout, and pray to Brighton that she can deliver it to you as quickly as possible. Hail Bowser! The Conqueror!
Tears streamed down Bowsette's face in rapid succession.
My children!
Peach put her arm around her.
They'll be okay. They'll be okay,
she said. She was tearing up as well, but she was able to hold it all in, being the trained regal she was.
But this letter... it was from several weeks ago? How are we going to know if they're okay now? What if it's too late? Bowser Jr. is too young for all of this. We'll be there for them. They're just as strong as you, remember that. They have that same special royal blood coursing in their veins, and that's how they're going to win. Well, actually, I have a story to tell about that,
Bowsette said.
It's about my wives.
Peach's eyes started to sparkle.
Ah. So you'll finally tell your new wife about your tragic backstory. I promised you I would. It's a bit of a long story, but...
Right then, a huge, 5-foot-tall bumpty talked in. A female with a hideous-looking face and an extremely long beak, extremely plump and with an off-violet hue. Peach and Bowsette both jumped, and then realized what this was.
You? I have come to tell you that the Crystal King wishes to see you,
said the bumpty.
Yeah,
Bowsette said.
yeah, I'm ready. Lead the way.
Was the dupli-ghost going to lead the way? Like that? Okay then. End of chapter. Chapter 64, Chapter 64, Crystal Palace Crawl. Chapter 64, Crystal Palace Crawl. Past the Shiver Mountains, past Starborn Valley, was a massive palace made seemingly of ice and glass, perched up at the top of a large hill. That was the place that the Crystal King had called his home since he left Bowser's kingdom all that time ago. They walked through the castle, had to solve a few annoying mirror puzzles involving their reflections, and finally entered the throne room. Bowsette had been in so many throne rooms in the past year, she was getting sick of the very concept of them. The Crystal King was there, and he was sitting on the throne, his tiny crystal bits floating around him in an orbit.
Crystal King, how good to see you,
said Bowsette.
So, you have read our proposal. And... Heh.
The Crystal King and his star bits disappeared in a wisp.
Okay then.
Peach muttered.
What's his deal? He likes to show off his powers,
Bowsette said.
He has really powerful blizzard attacks, which worked really well against the fire-based enemies we fought back during the revolution. And he has those little star bits that protect him and he can launch at people. And... Heh,
said a Crystal King that appeared to their left.
Heh,
cackled a Crystal King that had appeared to their right.
He has the ability to teleport and create illusion clones. It's a chore to deal with. That's why he was the final of the 7 generals I recruited. Recruited me?
Crystal King scoffed.
I recruited you. It was my army that defeated Morton's royal guard. The rest of your generals were mediocre at best. It is a desperate hour where we ask you for help,
Bowsette said, looking at neither of the 2 Crystal King copies because it was unlikely that either of them were real. In fact, as she said this, a third one appeared right in front of them.
I do not want to disturb your, peaceful reign here, but if Morton Koopa is not stopped again, we may never be able to match what we did last time. Because the Firestone amulet is gone. Exactly. Why not just make a new one?
The Crystal King asked.
You have the axe, don't you? Surely you didn't misplace it. I didn't, but even with the axe, creating another Firestone amulet would be useless. It would take 5 years to gather the pieces.
Bowsette said.
All the gems in the world could barely power another.
Peach was confused about this at the moment, Bowsette could tell, but she wouldn't bother explaining this stuff. It was a bit too complicated for the current situation. All that Bowsette realized was that Crystal King was stalling for something. He was trying to surround them, as a 4th copy of himself had materialized behind the 2 women. This was going to be a fight after all.
He's still just a reanimated skeleton,
Bowsette said.
We can still defeat him if we act fast. I'm afraid I have some bad news,
Crystal King said.
I don't want to help you.
Suddenly, dozens of star bits flew down from the ceiling and rained down upon Peach and Bowsette. While Peach raised her parasol to block the incoming attacks, Bowsette swiped them away and then sent a few fireballs upwards, cracking or melting them. Each of the 4 Crystal Kings lunged, but only one of them was real. It was impossible to tell, though, so Bowsette picked a random one and slashed, fake. her claws just went through thin air. Peach was completely outmatched for this kind of fight. Bowsette needed to end this quickly, or else she was going to get hurt again. So Bowsette hopped right above Peach, backing up against her own back and then breathing fire in a circle surrounding them. The fake crystal ghosts kept charging, but the real one backed away, fearful of the flames.
"Wise move," he said. "A wiser move would be to join us. I'm still powerful. You're still powerful. We can do this together." "Do you know why I took so long in my deliberations?"
Crystal King asked.
"It wasn't because I was torn morally and emotionally. It was that I received another offer the same day as yours. I chose that one." "Another offer? From Morton Koopa?"
Suddenly, an airship burst in, and Dry Morton hopped into the throne room. End of chapter. Chapter 65, Chapter 65, Another Throne Room Battle. Chapter 65, Another Throne Room Battle. Whelp. Bowsette pulled out her claws, snarled her fangs, and readied another few fireballs for attack. This was a terrible moment to note it, but she really should have equipped herself with new power-ups for eventualities like this. She didn't even have a new chain chomp mace weapon to use. Peach had traded her parasol for a frying pan, which meant they were pretty much screwed. Because right in front of them, past the circle of flames Bowsette had summoned for themselves, was Morton Koopa, the undead Koopa King, along with his royal guard of sword-equipped hammer bros. Crystal King, for all it was worth, was also still there.
"My son,"
Morton said.
"You certainly have changed your look." "Actually,"
Bowsette corrected.
"It's Bowsette now, and I'm your daughter."
Morton stared a few more moments and then said,
"Very well. I will say, my daughter, that look is very befitting of you. Your ancestors would take great curiosity in taking the form of a human, our sworn enemy, and using that form against them. I had assumed that you were doing so as a means of infiltration. But using it to cement your very being, to give yourself an emotional edge in combat? Well, that is just the sort of tenacity you have made yourself famous for. That blood of yours must be sparking with a new vibrancy." "You don't know the half of it,"
Bowsette said.
"My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Morton." "Good. Twice the pride, double the fall."
This would have been the perfect moment to attack, either of them. But they were still caught in a sort of standoff. She wasn't sure why. Even though this shield of flames protected them against the Crystal King, it would hardly do a thing to Morton, nor any of his high-powered bodyguards. They should have been dead already. Peach turned to Bowsette.
"Do you have a way out of this?" "Maybe. Stall for time,"
Bowsette whispered. She had to think. Peach glared at the Crystal King and shouted,
"You clod! Why would you betray us to him?"
Crystal King shrugged.
"He contacted me with a better offer. I lead them to the bones in Snowflake Lake, I lead you to me, I spring a trap, and then he leaves me alone when he begins his world conquest." "And you can trust him? Wasn't he the ruler of 1,000-year darkness? The Lord of Pain, master of the fiery elements?" "Good title drop, Peach,"
Bowsette whispered. She figured it out. Shiver City and its outlying areas were just like the rest of the Mushroom Kingdom, well tunneled. And that's what she was going to do. "Long time no see, Bone Dragon buddy." Let's hope you're still kicking. Bowsette raised her hand into the air slightly, just enough to be inconspicuous, and cast the summoning spell. Wherever in the world the bone dragon was, their mental link activated and it would be coming this way. Soon. Sometime soon.
I don't trust him, but what was I going to do? Fight him by myself?
Morden laughed, his voice dry and raspy from the fact that he was literally just cobbled together bones.
I'm not going to kill him or anything like I'm some pathetic B-list villain. I am, as you say, the ruler of 1,000-year darkness. I uphold my ends of bargains. And now that we have come and retrieved what lay beneath Snowflake Lake, we are done here. Thank you, my Dark Lord,
Crystal King said,
for your great patience and understanding here. What do you wish for me to do with these two?
At this, Morden turned his head to the Crystal King and blasted a fireball at him, incinerating him immediately. He burst into laughter.
Did you see the look on his face when I said, I uphold my ends of bargains, and he just believed it? Was he even there when I ruled Dark Land? Oh man, and why in the world would I not take revenge against him for destroying my armies?
Bowsette shook her head and turned to Peach.
He's always been like this.
Now, they were truly screwed.
Now, who is this fine, gorgeous human lady?
Morden asked.
A betrothed of yours. I'm her wife,
Peach said.
We got married yesterday. Oh. Congratulations.
Morden said.
Quite an odd time to get married all of a sudden, Bowsette. Are you sure you were thinking this one through? We have a long history. Don't worry, we've been over this with each other. We're good. Alright then. Well, it's too bad I'm going to have to break up your little honeymoon, then, because Bowsette, you're coming with me. If we go, we're going together,
Peach said.
As a unit. You realize I'm going to my doom, right?
Bowsette asked.
He's trying to use me in a sacrificial ritual to resurrect himself. I understand. Actually, you are no longer needed in this regard,
Morden said.
I have a much better plan now. Your escape gave me plenty of time to think, though, about the best way to use you. And in your current form, I can't imagine anything better for you. Care to explain? No. You'll see for yourself. Now that I have gotten what I came for at Snowflake Lake, my plan is just about complete. I don't need you, but I have something for you that you will highly appreciate.
Snowflake Lake, the city famous for its permafrost ice lake under which the skull of a former Dreadlord dragon was buried. That meant only one thing. Morden was going to try to resurrect a Dreadlord. Bowsette suddenly regretted summoning the bone dragon this way, even if it was the only option here.
You look nervous, my daughter. Is anything wrong? I'm just reminiscing. How many duels with you did I have before I finally killed you?
She asked.
6. I wonder how many it'll take before I kill you this time. Do you want to settle it that way? I can't guarantee you'll live through this one. It would be very disappointing if I had to use Roy or Larry in your stead. But if you will be dead, then it won't matter, will it? How dare you use my children in this? Our children.
She took Peach's hand as she said this.
Everything you've done, everything you've caused, you will pay for. Just as will you.
Bowsette was already paying for her actions. but at least she was trying to make up for them. That was the difference between Bowsette Toadstool and Morton Koopa. The Lordess and the Lord. Morton didn't try to remedy his actions. He lived to inflict pain. The Crystal Palace began to rumble.
Is this?
Peach began.
Yep. Well, come on with me. We don't have all day. Well, I guess we do. I don't have any plans.
Morton began walking towards the airship, and so did the Hammer Bros.
Please, don't make me do this forcefully. I don't want to mistreat you right now. That comes later. You.
Morton finally realized that the entire castle was shaking.
What in darkness's name?
Suddenly, the Bone Dragon and all three of its heads crashed through the ground, roaring out at the enemies in front of it. Bowsette took Peach into her arms and jumped on the back of the Bone Dragon.
Let's go. Now.
The Bone Dragon burrowed back underground, and Bowser launched as many fireballs as she could behind her, starting a massive fire in the hole behind them. The airship was too big to follow, and the Hammer Bros. Wouldn't be able to survive those kinds of flames. Morton himself might have been following, but it looked like he had left them alone. Peach and Bowsette shared a quick kiss. But Bowsette was not relieved. This changed everything. End of chapter. Chapter 66, Chapter 66, Death and Destruction. Chapter 66, Death and Destruction.
And that's what he's planning. It has to be. Now that he's been dead himself, clearly he doesn't care about causing the deaths of all life on Earth. He just wants to cause suffering.
Bowsette and Peach rode on the Bone Dragon through one of the endless tunnels underneath the continent, where an ancient people once made their home to avoid the death and destruction caused by the Dread Lords. The same Dread Lords that Bowsette's biological father wanted to resurrect.
Yeah, that's not good,
Peach said.
I think my father used to tell me stories about the Dread Lords, like as scary stories to freak me out when we went camping. They were real. Just like the celestial dragons that descended to Earth many eons ago, so too did the Dread Lords. Only they did not come as a gesture of curiosity and peace from galaxies far, far away. They came from deep in the core of the Earth, gestating in eggs and then bursting forth onto the surface to wreak havoc and feast upon the populace. They were defeated somehow, some way, but that information has become lost till we know of them as the stories passed down, and the occasional Dread Lord bones we discover in our exploring. And this Bone Dragon here is a baby Dread Lord that must have died without ever having reached the surface. It's extremely small. And my pet, luckily.
Peach crossed her arms to think.
Yeah. This really sucks, doesn't it? It means that the Crystal King's comments about the axe weren't just some stupid passing reference,
Bowsette said.
He must have realized Morton's plan and thought that I already knew about it. The axe might be the only thing with the power to actually fight one of those things. But without the Firestone Amulet, without the false Millennium Star. Bowsette, can you please elaborate on this stuff for me? What is any of this? An axe? What?
The Bone Dragon moved upwards as they approached the Mushroom Kingdom and the surface.
It's a long story. A very long story. Well, I'm a long girl. Tell it to me. Long girl? What? Never mind. I just want to know about your past, Bowsette. We're married now, so I get to know these things. Okay. The reason I haven't told you about a lot of these things is because I was going to get around to them when I told you about my first wife, Claudia Koopa. And I guess now's the perfect time to start from the beginning. Please? Please do.
But they didn't have time. The bone dragon emerged in the surface, in an area right in Peach's castle grounds, where it had emerged a first time. And there were hundreds of toads dressed up in military uniform, with Peach's image in the stained glass portrait at the top of the castle removed and replaced by the logo of a toad. What?
What?
Peach gasped. There had been a coup while she was away. End of chapter. Chapter 67, Chapter 67, let's go back a bit. Chapter 67, let's go back a bit. Toadsworth stood behind the Chancellor as he gave a speech to the massive crowd of pink-shirted toads, a whole sea of them. He was hardly paying attention to his words, but rather to the entire scene around them. There had to be a way to travel backwards in time, to stop himself from getting involved in this. To prevent the Chancellor from ever consolidating the power that he had amassed. The speech was the same as usual, the Chancellor on the stump as he talked about the diversity and culture within the Mushroom Kingdom, but that these cultures were not compatible to live together permanently and should be separated. It was all this big, long justification for kicking all the Koopas and Goombas and Yoshis out and committing acts of violence against them, and the crowd ate it up with gallant enthusiasm. Whoever said democracy works had simply never seen a crowd. This was an absolute monarchy, and yet it was still a furious mob that surrounded them. The Mushroom Kingdom was ending, Toadsworth realized. There was no going away from this road once they went down it, and they were going down it like a speeding car. This is how liberty dies, Toadsworth realized. With thunderous applause. Finally, the Chancellor's newest plan was set into motion. His secret army attacked mid-speech, with Yoshis and Dry Bones assaulting the crowd, each of them dressed in yellow garb that read only one thing: resistance. An act like this would surely lead to war. As the bodies of toads began to pile up on the grass and fireballs shot out and burned a dozen at once, this was the moment when it all disappeared. Toadsworth's hope of anything resolving itself peacefully. The ghosts of the dead would haunt him forever. So, in this, he decided to no longer regret his actions. He would fulfill them to the end.
You are the #1 force in this country.
Toadsworth shouted at a batch of new recruits for the new army. They had disbanded the old military, as it was too loyal to the crown, and those captains that disagreed with their coup were thrown in prison deep within the Koopa Bros' fortress. Not that toads were particularly fierce combatants, but it was something of a struggle to create this new military force.
I expect the very best from all of you, and if you do not fulfill this expectation, you will be expelled from the new army. That being said, I believe in you. I know you will keep our forces safe from those who threaten to upend our order.
One of the recruits raised her hand. He called on her.
Hey, I signed up to kill me some Koopas, she said. When do I get to do that?
There was a bit of canned laughter from the group.
You may not kill Koopas, or anyone for that matter, if they are not already attacking you or unless ordered to do so.
The crowd let out a groan of disappointment.
I know. But you'll get your chance, don't worry. The Koopa resistance and their foul ways must be stopped, for they appear to leave violence on the table at every juncture.
These recruits would do nicely. They would replace the dying ember of a country the Mushroom Kingdom once was, and turn it into a roaring flame of passion and strength. They would make the Mushroom Kingdom great again.
Do you like my design?
Grandma Toadstool asked.
Does Princess Peach really want this? It is a bit strong for her new dress. Thank you, my dear,
Toadsworth said.
It will help the princess quite a lot.
Grandma Toadstool had been Peach's nanny since before Toadsworth even had joined the royal court, hence her very familiar name. She was mostly senile now and easy to convince of anything, but he still lamented that they had to use her like this. She didn't even know that Peach was deposed, and most likely already dead. But she was still useful. She had designed most of the best outfits in the kingdom in her youth, and now she had given the Mushroom Kingdom a new insignia, a bright red mushroom with furrowed brows and a striking sword behind it. This would symbolize the new kingdom, a place for toads and a place for peace, but a peace brought forth by strength. He liked it. The Chancellor was making another speech to the new army. A full 4 battalions were gathered here for this speech, listening to the Chancellor's every word as he extolled the strength of the new Mushroom Kingdom and his plan to force peace on the entire region. Toadsworth once again hardly listened. There was no point, because he wrote the speech. Its delivery was second to the words that dripped off the page. If he was going to create a new kingdom worth showing off on the world stage, then it needed to be the ultimate one. It needed words that would peace like no other. And then there was a rumbling. As if the ground were shaking in excitement from the arrival of this new government, this new order, this new Toadsworth.
Roar!
Holy shit! By the time Toadsworth even realized what was happening, it was too late to stop any of it. There was a 3-headed bone dragon sticking out of the ground, and 2 figures atop it. The Lordess Bowsette and Princess Peach. Toadsworth and the Chancellor exchanged glances, and the Chancellor ran back inside into the castle, too afraid to deal with this fight. However, the true leader of the Mushroom Kingdom was not afraid. Toadsworth pointed, and screamed.
Charge at the traitors!
The new army complied, attacking the bone dragon with all their might. But it was useless. Bowsette, now apparently equipped with bat-like wings, began flying around the castle grounds, shooting fireballs at the military below her and picking up and throwing toads as she passed by them. Peach whacked the ones near her with a frying pan, and then of course the bone dragon itself was making a quick meal out of the combatants. Bowsette made no attempt to avoid conflict, and clearly relished in this. She slammed a toad face first into the ground and laughed.
Ka 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 ka.
And then in one flash step, she disappeared, and reappeared just in front of Toadsworth himself.
What's going on, Bob?
She showed off the sharpened claws at her fingertips. She grinned with all her fangs showing proudly.
I.
Toadsworth wanted to die. It was what he was wishing for all of this time. To die honorably, to have his grandchildren be able to look back and remember him with fond memories as they continued their education. To have his legacy printed in a chapter of history books taught to their own grandchildren. But he wasn't killed. He was thrown to the ground, his back cracking against the concrete, but he was still alive, still conscious, and still able to see his new army wiped out by 2 women and a skeleton dragon. End of chapter. Chapter 68, Chapter 68, Nabbit's Last Visit. Chapter 68, Nabbit's Last Visit. Okay. Okay. Nabbit learned he had a good power. Real cool stuff, really. He knew he was fast. He was very fast indeed. That wasn't a problem. The real problem was that he didn't know just how fast he was. This would have saved him a lot of time. Really would have. Running on water. So cool. Gotta show the kids that. The kids could probably do it already. Just didn't tell old Pops about it. All 60 of 'em. Well, time to bag another one. Not bag another treasure. He already did that. Bag some people. Not literally. Just an expression. Don't worry. So as Nabbit ran down the water and past the savage sea, he thought of a cool good plan to enact. He was going to get this guy to join him. For sure. Or else. There was Diamond City in the distance. A few skyscrapers jutting out. Some pink, yellow, and red towers that were very obvious. Most importantly, the big island just before the coast. Big wasn't true. It was very small. Just one building. But it was a big building. He ran off the water and back onto the land of this island, and then he ran into the building and realized he couldn't stop running that well because he was very good at going fast, but going slow was not something he was good at, and oh no, he was crashing into a robot and he was tumbling against the wall and up the stairs, and he kept tumbling and crashing and, oof, he came to a complete stop. Okay, that was fine, now he just needed to find the good doctor himself. He opened a research lab where, not a research lab. It was a girl with glasses sitting against a wall and reading a book. The cover of the book showed two adult men staring at each other very closely and blushing. The girl screamed at Nabbit. Nabbit left. He wasn't going to get help if he kept doing that. He opened a research lab where, that was a blue robot. Not a doctor. He opened a research lab where, Dr. Krieger was there. Hey, doctor, how you doing? Remember Nabbit? Wanna help out on something cool?
Hey doctor,
Nabbit said.
How you doing? Remember me? Wanna help out on something cool? Hello? And who is this?
Dr. Krieger asked. Behind him there was a glass wall protecting him from a series of explosions. Big ones. He was testing some new battle armor, looked like.
I got a message from the Mushroom Kingdom. Or, from Bowsette, the gal who used to rule the Mushroom Kingdom. Also Bowser Land. It's a bit of a mess. Not really a big details guy, so that's okay. I got the message though. Yes. Join us. We're going to save the world by fighting stuff.
Nabbit said.
Or, they are. I don't care. I just like nabbing stuff. Bagging stuff. Grabbing stuff. The usual. Can you give me some more details?
Dr. Krieger asked.
I am a very busy scientist here. I am working very hard on some new evil dude who wasn't alive but is alive now is back and wants to come back to life, even though I guess he kind of already did. Once again, it's kind of a mess, so ignore all the details and just focus on the fact that we want you to help out somehow and be a cool general in an army. Do you know how to fight? Wait. What evil dude? Morton Koopa or something.
Dr. Krieger froze.
My word, that is why Mad Science Stein hasn't contacted me in so long. The world truly is ending. I still remember the time of Morton's great terror on the world. An era where fear was powerful and all submitted to the whims of Dark Land. A horrible place. People think current times are tough, but, wait, why do you want me to help? I heard you were good with technology and stuff. You're making armor, we need armor. You got a blue robot, we need blue robots. You got some teenager sulking around, we actually don't need that, sorry.
At that moment, the same teenage girl stormed into the lab, her pigtails bouncing about with each stomp.
Who the heck is this guy?
She asked Dr. Krieger.
Penny, I'm sorry, I'm trying to speak with him.
Nabbit turned to the girl.
Hey. I'm Nabbit. I bag things, I grab things, I nab things. If you ever need a thief, I'm like a Hudson Hawk for a new generation. A super generation. Here's my card. Oops, I stole the card back. Not a magic trick. Just speed. Here it is again. Ha, guess I'll be seeing you again. Grandpa. Mr. Nabbit, please tell me more about this. Why is Morton Koopa alive again? I dunno. I don't even know who that is. I just delivered this message to you. You want in? Well. Before Mad Science Stein disappeared, he and I were working on a large and very secret project. We had excavated a site from the former smithy factory and found a whole lot of old machinery that we were trying to revitalize. Pretty dangerous. Very illegal. But we were highly successful in jump-starting some of the technology. We even found a working model of Smithy himself. Controlled, of course. I'm not a madman. Well.
He laughed.
Pretty dangerous? Very illegal? I'm in for all of this.
Nabbit said.
Come with me. Come to the Mushroom Kingdom with me. Or, somewhere. I'm meeting up with a lot of people. Even though most people I talked to said no. Like Bomberman. And Wario. And Waluigi. 9-volt and 18-volt said no. That one was sad. Orbulin was a definite no. Princess Shokora wasn't evil enough. Captain Syrup said whatever. Very sad. Did you just ask all of my associates before me? I'm a little hurt. I was just going down a list. In what order was this list? Order of priority.
Dr. Krieger steamed. Penny steamed too, but for a different reason.
You know, we will help. But we must prepare our technology for you first, so give us some time. Time's short. Do it fast. Fast is better. Better than safe, probably. Wait, we?
Penny asked.
Yes. We are going to take down Morton Koopa together.
He exclaimed.
It will be great family bonding time. Like the time we upgraded my laser eye. Didn't that put you out of commission for 6 months? That doesn't matter. We bonded.
The girl slumped her shoulders. Dr. Krieger was really determined. Nabbit was really happy. He finally got a second person to help out. It only took 85 conversations to finally recruit someone worth having. Yeah. They were right on their way to getting 7 generals, probably. Definitely. Nabbit was proud. And he got to steal a lot of stuff. End of chapter. Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Breakdown. Chapter 69, Breakdown. Peach buried herself in her wife's arms and tried to let her life disappear before her eyes. just so that she wouldn't have to think about any of this anymore.
It's so stupid. How did I not see any of this coming?
Peach cried.
They had been hiding this from me the whole time and I was so focused on stupid things. Mamma mia,
Bowsette said.
Yeah, you might be screwed here.
There was rioting going on in the streets of Toad Town, of Shroom City, of Koopa Village, even at this very moment. Down Underland had finally seceded, and the kings of Mushroom World were currently convening on whether to take action. She trusted Toadsworth to give her reports on this and to help her rule while she was away. But she never expected him to be in on this revolt from within.
My parents would be so disappointed in me. Peach, don't say that. It's not your fault. Your advisors. My advisors were strong because I let them be strong, because I didn't want to be as direct a ruler as the people needed me to be. Now the kingdom is falling apart and it's all my fault. Literally all of it. Wait. I just realized. I'm starting to sound exactly like you.
Peach said. She chortled.
Wow, I finally understand how you feel, Bowsette. When everything is collapsing and all you can think about was what you did or didn't do, that all led right up to this. Holy darn, this feels awful. Yeah. Well, I'm getting over it. Don't let yourself fall into the trap. I don't want to have to be the emotionally mature one here. What am I going to do, Bowsette?
Peach asked.
You must do what you feel is right, of course. Well, that's lousy advice. Go out there and tell them how you feel. Don't hold back. No civility allowed. I know you can do it, because you've done it before. Yeah.
Peach let go of her wife and got up. She adjusted the crown on her head and made sure her outfit wasn't wrinkled.
I'll do it. Just make sure you don't cause uproar that's too big,
Bowsette said.
We do need to go on one more adventure right after this. Understood. Roger.
Peach went down the stairs and entered the foyer, and then stepped outside, where there were tens of thousands, no, maybe hundreds of thousands, standing before the castle grounds. They were people of all races, all creeds, all genders, all walks of life. Many had been injured in the fighting. Many were about to start fighting at any moment. There were bandana-clad Koopas and pink-shirted Toads among the group, and the Toads were more than willing to start shouting at the Koopas even when Peach's personal guard was there to keep the order. She wasn't willing to trust bodyguards, though. Too many of her own had willingly joined Toadsworth and the Chancellor. She couldn't even bear to look them in the eyes, she hated them so much. And she hoped they rotted away in that prison cell, the same one that Bowsette had been placed in about 1 year ago. So much had changed since then.
The people of the Mushroom Kingdom,
she began. The entire crowd went silent. Even the arguing political activists were hushed.
The kingdom has failed you. I have failed you. But most importantly, you have failed yourselves. I want to say that this is all my fault, that I should have been more proactive in keeping the peace and setting a good example. But I have been out trying to save the world all this time, and I do not regret my actions one bit. I could blame it all on Bowsette, whose short rule over this kingdom was marked with strife and aggression. But she was only a symptom of what was really wrong. She did not have unlimited power over you, or any of us. She only had fear on her side. By the way,
Peach held up her hand and flashed her wedding ring.
Bowsette and I were married recently. With that, I am officially changing my title. I am the king of the Mushroom Kingdom, like my father before me, no longer a mere princess to be puppeted around by advisors. And Bowsette will be my side as queen. There is nothing more symbolic than a human and Koopa falling in love together, is there?
The crowd went into a frenzy of gasps and shouts from all sides. Many pink-shirted toads were pushing out of the crowd and walking away, presumably to begin plotting for some new acts of violence. The Koopas largely cheered, but several of them began throwing things onto the stage as well.
However,
the scene went quiet again.
That won't matter much anymore,
Peach continued.
Because the Mushroom Kingdom has fallen into ruin. My father's goal was to bring this into a place of unity and peace, a place for any species to roam free and cooperate with one another to help bring each other up. We lived happily for a while, but maybe it was all a charade, a sham. Maybe I was simply never looking closely enough to see the discord brewing underneath. Because in the past year, you people have shown yourselves to be more divided than ever. My advisors took advantage of you, using violence to gain further control and seize the government in a military coup. But they would not have been able to take advantage of you if you were not so craven, so bigoted toward one another that you would stoop to such low levels of hatred. You're supposed to love each other. But you seem to have no capability to do so. So in that, I no longer want to rule people like you. I'm done with that. From now on, I am dedicating myself to one thing, and one thing only, saving the world from Morton Koopa, the new ruler of Dark Land. He is planning a great war that will plunge the world into another 1,000 years of death and destruction, and if we do not stop him now, we may never be able to. That is much more important than managing the masses here. In this, I am officially dissolving the Mushroom Kingdom. The Mushroom World Kings have been deliberating about their own course of action, and to them I say that they can decide for themselves how to rule. Because it is there. The dissident territories who have requested autonomy or independence can have it. It is there. If the Toads truly want their own ethnically cleansed insular country, then they can make one. But I will not be a part of it. I no longer care. From now on, I will be staying here at my castle, and anyone who wishes to assist my effort to defeat King Koopa can come here. But outside the castle grounds, everything else is no longer my domain. It can be anyone else's. I simply don't care. That will be all. Guards, please escort the crowds off my property.
Peach went back inside before the people could go into too much of an uproar, but a wave of noise still permeated the castle walls. It was almost deafening. Bowsette, who had been listening from inside, was slack-jawed.
You. I realized something during my speech,
Peach said.
We forgot Toadette in Shiver City. I wonder how she's holding up with her cousin. You. Well, we're finally ready to go. Let's find that axe. And you had better tell me about Claudia Koopa. You? Yeah. Yeah, let's go.
Bowsette flapped her wings and hovered a few inches to meet her wife and kiss her on the cheek.
I'm proud of you.
Peach and Bowsette left the castle grounds, and left the Mushroom Kingdom for the very last time. End of chapter. Chapter 70, Chapter 70, My First Wife. Chapter 70, My First Wife. It was far to the south of the Mushroom Kingdom, past the dry desert and along the coast, where they would find the Bananan Ruins, a small jungle deep within a stretch of mountains and canyons, separated from the rest of the world around it. It looked like it would have been perfectly in place in a place like the Kremling Isle, but it was halfway across the world from there, in another continent entirely. That was what made the Bananan Ruins so interesting to Bowsette. and to her first wife.
No more chain chomping around. You have to tell me,
Peach said. She was currently dressed up in a really fancy jungle get-up, with beige clothes and a special hat, but she still had short shorts on. Very attractive, Bowsette admitted, but terrible for walking around in a place where there were more types of insect species than there were sentient beings. Bowsette just wore her normal outfit, though, and hoped that her extremely high body temperature dissuade mosquitoes from bugging her. Ha, get it? Bugging her.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
Bowsette said.
Claudia Koopa. My first wife. Was she cute? She's cute. For a Koopa. You have to remember, our sense of beauty is different, so my definition of cute is not the same as yours. And yet, we both think I'm cute. Well, some opinions cross boundaries. Anyway, story time. Claudia Koopa. She was my first love, but more importantly, she was my first general. My biological father abandoned me in the Kalimari Desert when I was a hatchling. I was the last of 25 children, a nuisance from a wife that had already betrayed him and had already been exiled to the furthest reaches of Sherbet land. So for most of my life, I was raised by my real father, the Maja Koopa Kamek, and my real grandmother, Kami Koopa. The two were both busy as wizards and doctors in the local region that consisted of many nomadic races trying to survive in the wilderness, but they took the time to raise me properly, to teach me magic and how to be a strong leader. The whole time, I don't think I had any idea that I was truly the child of a great king, with some royal blood inside of me that would propel me to heights unknown. I probably didn't until adulthood. But my father did. I look back and realize he had been training me as a honed weapon to defeat Morton Koopa. My entire life was about enacting revenge against the man who had exiled him to the Kalimari Desert, and shaping me into a fearsome, charismatic warrior. And it worked. By the time I came of age, most of my other siblings were gone. Many died of old age, or of natural causes, or of accidents in dangerous magical research. It varied a lot. But many began to rebel and plot against Morton, who had somehow lived many centuries past the point he should have. That rebellion was quashed and all of my siblings involved were turned to stone and hidden away in some deep cavern we will never discover. Soon, I was the only one living. Morton had acquired a new wife to sire a final child, the perfect heir, but he had forgotten that one child still lived. When I touched my toes on the earth of Dark Land for the first time since early childhood, I essentially began a rebellion at that very moment. The revolution that would take down Morton Koopa for good. I was unable to fight the battles myself, naturally, but Morton Koopa for the first time in his life began to fear. I had united many villages in hatred against him, just like the Koopalings are doing right now, and while his Koopa troop army was effective in putting down resistance, the embers within their hearts were never able to simmer. For the next 5 years, I began to look for weapons to defeat Morton with, something that would actually work against an invincible Koopa king, as well as a group of lieutenants to lead into battle that would be able to fight alongside me, the 7 great generals. And that was where I met Claudia Koopa, back in the Kalimari Desert. She was a Koopa, just like me, who had been cast out by her family and left to survive in the wasteland all her life. But she had never had a family. She learned to live on her own, to survive off robbing passers-by, to survive off hunting and gathering. I was a young Koopa obsessed with finding power. She was a young Koopa haunted by a life lived in constant turmoil. We collided and began our messy relationship immediately. We met out of desperation, and now that the Koopa troop was actively pursuing me across the world, we fought together to survive. We thrived. While I was the largest and most powerful for sure, she was agile, quick, and ruthless. She was my knight, and I was her pearl. A whole lot of my fighting style as Bowsette was based on what Claudia had taught me. It wasn't as effective when I was 8 feet tall and hulking huge, but at this size I am perfect for it. I can be your knight now, Peach, and that pleases me greatly. Claudia and I probably weren't meant for one another, but we stayed together in a passionate romance for the duration of the next 5-year revolution. Together, we assembled the Firestone Amulet, a powerful magical device that would imbue a weapon, a person, a place, with infinite, but temporary, power. We didn't know how we would use it, but to keep it safe, Claudia kept the red gem around her neck at all times. It was never safer than it was at that point. I found 6 more generals who would support me in my quest, sometimes in exchange for territory, for power, sometimes in exchange for friendship, for loyalty. Gumbas, the ambitious despot whose self-defeating nature always undermined his ability to rule. Swamp King, the isolated, gruff ruler of a floating fortress, always a little stubble on his stony chin. General Guy, whose command over the Shy Guys was impeccable but his ambition and ideas always too thin, too hesitant to be on his own. King Bob-omb, a regal and long-serving ruler caught in a generation-long civil war between the red and black Bob-ombs, one that still rages today. King Boo, the eccentric and enigmatic ghost of some unknown ruler from eons past. And Crystal King, the reserved, cold warlord from the Great White North, and the most powerful being of the whole army, aside from myself. And aside from Claudia. She was my first general. The only one I didn't have to fight to recruit. The only one I could go to bed with and wake up knowing for sure she wouldn't inevitably betray me. Before the invasion of Dark Land had begun in earnest, our love had produced a child, Ludwig, with another 2 on the way, Lemmy and Iggy. Despite all the risks, we left the child in the care of Cammy and Kamek and began our final assault. You see, Claudia came up with a plan that would end up ensuring our victory over Morton. We knew that he had a new wife, and a new child surely along with that. So we kidnapped them both, just as the invasion was beginning. It turned out that the wife had been wanting to leave Morton's sphere for a very long time and was glad to get away, but she also did not want to raise this child. So we were left with a hatchling, barely out of his shell, one that Morton may not have even known about yet, being so preoccupied with the war at hand. My younger brother. And dear Claudia, my wife, she decided we would raise this child together. In a bit of intentional irony, we named him Morton Jr., and he became my eldest son. Whenever I look at him, I see my father, but I also see myself. And I'm proud of him to this day for being the terrifying villain that he can be. Not that I support villainy anymore, per se. Anyway. Now, with the impetus of needing to raise a new family together, we fought much harder. Harder than we ever had before. We needed Dark Land to be the kind of lava-covered kingdom that we could raise a family in, that we would finally be able to live in without fear of death. And so Morton had to be defeated. With the help of the false Millennium Star's magical energies, we were able to take back most of Dark Land, cornering all of Morton's armies to the region surrounding Castle Koopa. But the final battle was a siege we were simply unprepared for. Even Crystal King's forces were being repelled at rapid rates. My wife and I fought on though, and we stormed the castle. Morton was too powerful for either of us. Too powerful for both of us. Too powerful for all 8 of us, even. He very nearly killed King Bob-omb, and his militia of dry bones warriors began to decimate our armies, unable to die without a power star and unable to tire out at any cost. So Claudia and I used the Firestone Amulet. In one swift move, I launched Claudia off of me, and onto Morton, who stood at 4 times her height and swinging an axe around that could have evaporated her in one cut. She attacked him up close, stunning him for just one moment, and one moment that we took advantage of. I took the axe from his grasp, activated the Firestone Amulet, and set it to power the axe. In a burst of literally infinite energy, I used that axe and cut Morton down. It took not one, not two, but 8 strikes until he stopped breathing. He was simply too powerful at the height of his power. If you had been there, you would understand, Peach. We had to give everything to defeat him. Everything. Once the war was over, we suddenly were thrust into the role of leadership. We tried to make a council of the 8 of us, but Claudia and I had too much power with the 2 of us, and after Huamp King and Crystal King departed, we effectively became Emperor and Empress together. After Wendy was born, we even had a royal family that was growing larger and made for great public imagery. The other generals simply fell from the limelight. So did Claudia. Being a mother of 6 rambunctious children was very difficult for her, and the stress levels were very high. She was never too fond of Morton Jr., who fought with Ludwig constantly and always looked down on his siblings. He got over it with age, but Claudia didn't. Our last child together, Larry, was the end of it all. Claudia was so stressed by all the child-rearing, about her fading spotlight as I assembled my new kingdom, that I guessed she couldn't take it anymore. Postpartum depression, or something. So she just... I'm sorry. Not a day goes by that I don't think of her. We weren't compatible, maybe. Not like you and me. But we were in love, and that was what mattered at the time. That's so. Bowsette, that's so sad.
Peach was moved nearly to tears by this.
It's not that bad. I still got 7 wonderful children out of it.
Bowsette said.
Their royal blood may have been dissipated by the fact I married a commoner, but the only people that would have ever cared about that were Kamek and Morton. Neither of whom I give any care to. And thanks to her, Norton's axe has been hidden away from the entire world. Until now.
They stepped into a temple buried under a growth of trees and vines. It was suddenly very quiet, the ambience of the jungle disappearing behind them.
In all of it, the only thing I regret is not telling you sooner,
Bowsette said.
Maybe if I had given you that whole spiel the first time I kidnapped you, I'd have seduced you right then. Women love a good tragedy, hey? They do, but I am glad we didn't fall in love in a kidnapping situation. The power dynamics there are uncomfortable, and I would never be able to shake the feeling that I only fell in love with you because my mind tricked me into falling for my captor. That's a very fair point. I can't believe we ended up together like this. Beauty and the other beauty. Yep, and... Ka.
A deep-throated laugh reverberated through the temple.
Is that the axe?
Peach asked.
It's a magic axe, not an enchanted cartoon character,
Bowsette said.
No, that's...
A figure thudded to the ground.
Ka.
A blue-haired, full-figured female Koopa wearing nothing but a grey necklace stood before them.
Bowsette.
The Koopa put her hands on her hips.
I knew it.
She shouted, pointing at Bowsette.
I friggin' knew it. Bowsette. That's Claudia,
she replied. End of chapter.